Kakadosh Boker Tov. We're continuing with halachot of Siman Resh Lamed. This is now going to be a very interesting halacha, which says as follows: Hamit palela ma she'avar. Somebody is going to pray for something that happened in the past. So, for example, he comes into the city and he hears that they're screaming in the city. So he comes and he says, "Yehi ratzon shelo yehe kol zeh betoch beti." So imagine he already heard the screams, but now that he's in the city, he comes and he says, "Be'ezrat Hashem, it shouldn't come from his house." So he says, or another one, his wife is pregnant, and it's going to be after the 40 days that she already conceived. And he says, that his wife should have a male child. This is going to be tfilat shav. Why? Since it's going on the past, you cannot change the past. Right? The past already happened. So once it already happens, if you're going to come and start praying, it's already going to be too late. So he says, but rather, yitpalel adam al atid. You should always pray for the future. And you have to say thank you for the past. He says, so for example, you go into a city and you're going to say, he comes inside, he says, that I came in. When he's going to go out, he says, he comes, which means, then he says, and that's tfilat derech. From here we learn the concept of tfilat derech. What's the concept that we're trying to understand? We're trying to understand is that anything which is going to happen in the past, it's already too late. So you can't ask for a miracle. So you're going to undo the past and change the past. It just doesn't work. But anything which is going to be in the future, you're supposed to pray. But not only are you supposed to pray for the future, also say thank you for all the past. Why? Because everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does, if we're going to say thank you for what He does, so therefore the future will also look a lot brighter than the way that it is right now. And we're talking about the concept of whether it's going to be Hillel and others, that they went and they said this. This is actually an incredible concept, that when the person came into the city and he hears the screaming, he comes and he says, it shouldn't be from his house. Right? Hillel actually said a very important halacha, which is actually going to be also the Sif Hey. We know Sif Hey is actually based upon Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva comes and he says, Leolam yadam ragil omar, kol ma David rachmana letav avid. A person should always be accustomed to saying, everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does is for the best. So what does that mean then? So it says that Rabbi Akiva, that Hillel came and he said like this. He says, if he comes into a city and they're screaming, he knows that it's not going to be from his house. Why? Because the fact that the way that they were going to accept it, he already knew it wasn't from his house. So it's not like he had something that he has a doubt whether it's his house or not his house. He says the way that they accepted the information was that since Kol Ma David Rachman al Tavavid, everything was a completely different way, even of accepting of the bad things. Because if right now a person realizes that really Be'emet what's bad is actually not bad, so therefore they're going to accept it in a different way as well. Does it hurt? For sure it hurts. Everything hurts. But at the end of the day, even the way of the acceptance is going to be 100% different in the way that they're doing. Now, the concept of we said tfilat shav, we mentioned obviously if somebody's screaming in the city, because if something already happened and they're already screaming, whatever happened, whatever the case was. What about the second one? The second one is the wife is pregnant and it's already after Yom Arba'im. We know that before the 40 days, right, the person is allowed to come and to pray for whatever the gender is going to be, whether it's going to be a male or a female. After the 40 days, it's tfilat shav. Now, if you think about it, what's the case? If it's that you know, the only way you would know is through a blood test or whatever, it's not common, because even if you're going to come and check with an ultrasound, you will not be able to see until 40 days if it's a boy or a girl. So therefore, what's the problem now that it's after 40 days? Now all of a sudden, yes, now it's becoming a tfilat shav if you're going to pray for a boy. So the explanation that I once heard was something incredible. The truth is, even if we don't know, but the child knows, the fetus knows what it is. And therefore, until 40 days, you could pray and you could actually change the gender of the child. After 40 days, you cannot change it anymore. Why? Until 40 days, if you're going to put these electrons or anything around the baby, it doesn't move. The brain only has, when it's going to start moving with all these things, is after 40 days. And that's why many times in halakha, there's always going to be a difference between 40 days. Before 40 days, it's not considered apala. So for example, you have a woman that she has a miscarriage before 40 days, the next child is still a bechor. 100%, there's no problem whatsoever. And there's many other ramifications also about before 40 days and after 40 days. So therefore, after 40 days, once right now the child knows that it's a male or a female, even if we don't know, because we won't be able to understand or to check. But it doesn't matter. The second ino is not you're doing a miracle, which is going to be outright and that you can't do. So that's why it says it's going to be tefillat shav. It's going to be a tefillat shav. Therefore, you have to come and only pray for something which is going to happen in the future, or what we mentioned before the 40 days, which means that still the miracle didn't happen at all. So therefore, there's no problem of praying in such a scenario.